I'd like to formally call the April 27th meeting of the Diversity, Racial Equity, and Inclusion Committee to order. As a first order of business, before I go any further, just want to remind folks that this is a recorded meeting. So as you know, the proceedings will be taped to be made available to others at a later time. So I wanted everyone to be aware of that. As always, our first order of business is to approve the minutes from our last meeting. I'm assuming that everyone received the minutes from the April 13th meeting. Is that correct? I see heads nodding, so I'm going to assume that's the case. I had a chance to review that. Were there any changes that were required from anyone's perspective? All right. If that's the case, then I would actually, I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes of the April 13th meeting.
I approve the minutes of the April 13th meeting.
Okay, and the second to that
I'll
motion?
second.
Okay. And all in favor, say aye. You're all approved, so I guess we're all set and off to the races. One of the things that we did want to just review with you is the shared accomplishments document that Tasha put together. As you recall, at our last meeting, we had Vanna Howard here, and she wanted to get some more detail on some of our accomplishments so far. And Tasha was kind enough to pull that information together in a single document. And I think she wanted to review that with the team at this point. So Latasha, I will hand it over to you.
Okay, thank you. So it was sent on April 15th, and it says, Dear State Representative Howard, the Chelmsford Diversity, Racial Equity, and Inclusion Committee appreciate your attendance at our April 13th meeting. We are looking forward to learning more about the Joint Committee on Racial Equity, Civil Rights, and Inclusion. It is our intention to support efforts that will improve the lives of all residents in our town and state. Our committee had its first meeting on September 29th, 2020. As a committee, we have established a set of goals in which includes a combination of short-term and long-term initiatives. Our goals fit in one of three categories: education, town culture, and our communication. In the past 6 months, we have accomplished the following tasks: created a mission statement, interviewed Chelmsford Police Chief to learn more about the demographics of the department, their training, review traffic stop data, and learn about community initiatives. We championed a proclamation condemning racism, hatred, and discrimination approved by the Chelmsford Select Board on February 9th, 2021. We published an individual pledge condemning racism, hatred, and discrimination. To date, over 50 people have signed the pledge. We've held meetings with Chelmsford influencers such as business development lead and a human resources manager. We've established a partnership with Chelmsford's public library to share literature and other media platforms as it relates to social justice. We've created a virtual display to celebrate Black History Month. A notable African American was featured each day of Black History Month. In addition, we recorded performances of the National Black Anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing, and Dr. Maya Angelou's poem, Still I Rise. We recognize women of Chelmsford during Women's History Month. We conducted informative interviews with the transgender person and published scholar who documented the support needs of children who self-identify as transgender or non-binary. This is an impressive list of accomplishments. There are more goals we are working towards. One of the most impactful, still pending, is identifying diversity training workshop for ourselves, the Chelmsford Select Board, and the community at large. The DREIC has also written a comment about the recent events related to acts of violence against Asian Americans and the tragic death of Mr. Dante Wright. We greatly appreciate your interest in our work. Please let us know how we can support your committee in the future. Best regards, Phil Hicks, Chair, Latasha Dixon, Vice Chair.
Great, thank you for sharing that. Actually, I think it's very timely. Turns out that having a list like this is pretty timely. I was just contacted by Virginia Timmons, who is the new chair for the select board, and she has asked us to come in to give an update on where we are. And I'm looking at June the 7th as a date that we would be able to go in and do that. So there'll be more. Obviously, we'll have more conversation around that. But wanted folks to be aware of that, and having this list plus we can add any activities that we undertake between now and June 7th to this list of accomplishments, so that we can review those with the board. So that'll be great. And the one thing, it's interesting, we go over the list, and the one thing that sticks out that we didn't miss, that we didn't mention, that I think is probably one of our key things, is the creation, actually, and maintenance of the webpage that is currently where all of our information is found, and we've been able to direct people to the webpage and use the webpage to communicate and educate the town. So I think that's certainly something that we want to highlight going forward. So any comments, questions, were there any things that we may have missed, any exclusions that folks think we should have added or should add?
I think you guys did a fantastic job.
Yeah, I echo that.
Okay, great.
So what date before the you and Latasha meeting with the select board?
We're looking at this point. I'm looking at June the 7th. One of the things we were actually given a list of times from the board. They meet every Monday, and given the timing, I mean, they started with May the 3rd. Well, we don't really have an opportunity to get together to prepare for this. So one of the things we wanted to do, and I certainly wanted to do, is to look at the calendar and say, choose a time that gives us, an opportunity to prepare, ourselves to have that conversation with them. So I think the 7 helps us to do that. It also, it recognizes that we've got some things that I would think we'd want to nail down before going in there. Not the least of which is completing the diversity training that we all are kind of on the hook for. And I think we had said at our last meeting that we were going to look at May, I believe May the 13th as a date for making sure we have that done. The reason that's important is because when we sit with the select board, we want to be able to present to them that we have this training, we've taken it, we suggest that they take it, and we can speak from a position of knowledge and strength around that particular item. So I think that the 7th again gives us some time. The other thing to recognize is that we only have 2 more meetings on scheduled between now and June 7th anyway. So it's not like we have a lot of opportunity to kind of get ourselves together for that. So I'm feeling good about the 7th. I haven't just to be clear, I have not formally nailed that date down with the board yet, but I don't think that's going to be an issue. If I find out that it is an issue, I'll obviously get back to you. But it's one of the dates that that they offered to us.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Oh, Sharice's got her hand up. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have a question. When you talk about 2 more weeks, that also means that we come to an expiry of our, so to speak, contracts or, our relationship, and then we have to renew. Is that how that works? And what does that look like going forward?
Right.
Because
In all candor, I'm not 100% sure what that does look like. All I know is that our terms, if you will, our terms of participation on the board were through
June.
June 30th, 2021. So that's I have that same information that everyone got on the application that they filled out. Specifically, what happens after that, I really don't know. So I need to get more details so I can get back to the committee and let them know, let you folks know what's next. I mean, I would imagine. Well, I don't even want to speculate because I don't know. So I'll just commit to finding out as soon as possible and getting
Well,
back.
isn't that, yeah, I'm sorry, isn't that something that is a decision made by the select board? So as you guys are meeting with them, is that something, I'm sure Tricia may know some of that
Right, yeah,
information.
she's got more information. I think that, what I want to find out is what's the standard process? What happens in the town? Because I've got to believe there have been situations where the town has established a committee initially for, a short period of time, like a year, let's say, and then revisited whether it wanted to extend or not. I don't know what that process is. So, I again, I don't want to speculate as to, what happens or when, clearly, ultimately the boards have got to make the decision, because we were created, at the behest of the board. So the board will need to make a decision as to what happens to the committee at the end of this, at the end of our assignments. And again, I don't know, Sharice. So
Okay, I just thought I'd put it out there as,
Yeah.
Something to think about. Many of us, yeah, so we'll go from there. Yeah.
Absolutely, and certainly, hopefully we can get some clarity on what happens prior to when we sit down with them on the 7th. I mean,
Yes.
obviously, we'll get detail after that, but my focus will be on trying to get some detail after that. I mean, I'm sorry, before that. I'm sorry.
Just on that note, we want to remember that I know Lauren's already starting to do a lot of work on that World Day of Peace for September. So technically, this committee doesn't really have the go-ahead to move forward with that. So we want to kind of keep that in mind, whether or not that's something that select board even wants us to do.
Yeah, but yeah, that could very well be the case. So yeah, one of the things, unfortunately, our expert in that space is not with us tonight. So what I'll have to do is to kind of hold off and try to connect with her and get some clarity on that and get back to the team.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions or concerns about that particular item? All right. Again, well, again, going down the list here, we're at the working group review, and I think we wanted to just take an opportunity to see where the different groups were with regards to their projects, if they had any updates, any report outs. Do we have anyone that wants to
Do we want
begin?
to start off with Juneteenth?
I can certainly speak about the Juneteenth progress if folks want to do that first.
I don't think we have another event before then. Am I mistaken?
I did want to, I've kind of had some information for a while just to report back. I kind of alluded to some things I found out about education and what's going on because there were questions. And really is just a report, so it won't require the discussion that Juneteenth does. So do you mind if I just go through that first?
Sure,
Yes,
yeah,
go
that's
ahead,
right.
please
Yeah,
do.
right,
Okay.
absolutely, absolutely.
So I just want to let everyone know that I was last in touch with Linda Hirsch, who's the assistant superintendent, at the end of March, and I asked her some questions about, some of the things we'd spoken about in January. She let me know a couple of things, letting us know that they have a committee doing professional development that meets, that set up the curriculum for next year. They hadn't vetted it out, but they will. One thing she had done was offer a graduate level course on equity and civics education to the teachers. So she has something out. I don't know how many people took advantage to take that, but that's been offered to all staff. Oh, here it is. They do have a civics course in the program of studies for the high school for next year that addresses diversity, equity, and racism. And she said for middle school and elementary school, it's more embedded into English language arts and social studies. She did give me a lot of access to information about the diversity, both of the faculty and the student population, which is actually available on the State Department of Education and elementary and secondary education. So I have that I can just kind of keep within our files, but as you would imagine, the population for the school district is mostly white. The next highest group is Asian. This is for the students, and then other groups are much smaller numbers. For the staff, it is, where are we having this? Sorry, I had 73.3% of the staff is white, and all other groups are 1% or less. So that is definitely something that I know that we had talked to them about working on. She said they don't really have applicants, so sometimes it's really tough to do that. Let's see if there's anything else that she had given me. No, I think that's it. All right, just want to let you know that I've got continuing to try to just get information and remind them that it's something we're hoping that they're working on continuously.
Mm-hmm. Now, have you thought about how you might, I don't know, for lack of a better term, package the information that you have so you can at least share it with the team? Or again, I know you have a number of sheets of paper there, but I didn't know if you were planning on creating some sort of a report, or if that was too much. Again, just trying to understand how we might have an opportunity to see that. Because I, for one, would like to see.
That's easy for me to do, Phil. I will do that.
Oh,
I will
okay,
put something together. That's not hard for me to do.
Oh, okay, great.
So
Yeah, that'd be great if you could do that, because I think that gives us all kind of an opportunity to see what the numbers really look like. I mean, I think we understand that they're not huge, but it would also be kind of helpful to understand what they look like, as far as the staff at the school and that sort of thing. I know that you mentioned that she said that they have issues of diversity and so forth. I think you said embedded in the curriculums for the middle school. Did she give any idea as to what that looked like, or how would like an outsider assess that? Or if we wanted to see what that looked like, where would we go? I guess that's what I'm asking.
Right. So one thing I did ask her about was who would I sit down to? For instance, I know that the new elementary school English language arts curriculum supposedly has much better diversity in terms of authors and topics for discussion in their new curriculum. And I asked her who the best person to sit with, and she actually told me that would be her. So at some point I could sit down with her for details about that. I didn't ask her about middle school, but I can definitely do that and have a discussion directly on what that would be.
Yeah.
Quick
Yeah,
question for you,
I just,
Susan. Do you
What?
think she would like to attend one of our meetings?
I think she'd very much be open for that. I think that would be great. As long as we give her a chance to prepare, as we did when we
Right.
had our meeting with her in January. She was
Yeah.
very well prepared and very eager to talk about it. So, yeah, I can
That
also,
might give us
ask her
all
about
an
that.
opportunity to ask her some questions.
sure,
Mm.
Thank you.
I can, We'll see how many meetings we have left, but I can definitely
Yeah.
approach her about that. Yes.
Not
Yeah, I
many,
think-
but
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Okay.
yeah, I think, and again, I think that's the key, because we don't have a lot, at a lot of meetings, at this juncture at any rate. So
But I'll address it with her and
Mhm.
we'll see.
No, that'd
It's a
be great.
possibility.
and it
Okay.
doesn't have to be for the full meeting. It could be like when we spoke with the business manager, 15, 20 minutes.
the minutes, right?
That would probably be just right.
Mhm.
Okay. Sure.
Did I see Sharice? Did you have your hand up?
Yes, I was just going to say, before we move on to Juneteenth, we're missing over the month of May, which is American Asian Pacific Islander month. And
Right.
so it's important that we acknowledge that, particularly in light of what's happening in the country, around the hate. So I think, I'm not sure if we had anything planned for that. I know that there's actually a program going on tonight at 8 o'clock. I forgot to tape it. I'm gonna run downstairs and tape it because it's on ABC, and they're really highlighting the Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, which I think will probably be pretty fascinating. But I think it's important for us to definitely do something for that for the month of May. And I'm not sure if we centered anything around that.
Well, absolutely.
That was
Well,
me again.
Yep. And we have Latasha. Latasha has
You're
spent
right.
some time pulling some information together, and I'll let her speak for herself. But
Yeah, I
think
just
we've got a
put
way of
together
moving
a
forward,
quick
yeah.
video, kind of like I did for Black History Month, introducing Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and gave some background on the origins of it. I did find one website that has 30 Asian American and Pacific Islanders that they consider notable. And there's a little write-up about each of them. So I'm hoping that that's something that Tricia can add to the website early next week when she returns.
Yeah, I just didn't want us to skip over that because I know we were going to Juneteenth. And also, it is Cinco de Mayo Day as well on the 5th. And we might want to just put something up about that as well.
Thank you for that reminder.
And does Mother's Day count at all? Just FYI, since
I
no?
would. I will.
All right,
And
remember
there were
that
other
when
things
June
in
comes for
May.
Father's Day. Remember that when June comes for Father's Day.
I will. And I'll say the same thing.
Okay.
I'll say the same thing.
All right,
Yeah.
I just thought I'd throw it out there.
Absolutely.
There's also other events that we had talked about in May that I had done some research about and hope to connect with Tricia to put some things on the website. I found quite a few different links, some of them because May is also Mental Health Awareness Month.
Mm.
And that I don't have the exact date in front of me, but the United Nations Cultural Diversity Day is also in May. And I had gotten in touch with Lisa Maroney to see if she had any information on businesses in town, like a list that maybe we could publish something about restaurants or stores that cater to various different cultural groups to kind of expand the horizons of our residents. But she knew of nothing that existed already that would be put together in that manner. So I might try to see if there's just some things I can put together, and maybe Tricia can highlight some things on the webpage.
Yeah.
Just to give people some ideas of places to try, businesses to cater to, since we can't actually have a real cultural diversity event like we had talked about many, many months ago.
Yeah. And I think to your point too, Susan, even for the Asian American Pacific Islanders Heritage Month, people look for what can we do, right? And so maybe some ideas and thoughts or some recommendations for some movies, some books, or even recipes. And one of the things that I know I'm going to be doing is looking at recipes, and for anything that calls for various spices, visiting some of my local stores, Asian American stores, to buy those spices and have communication with the owners of those stores. And because many people say, well, certain things don't happen in my neighborhood but they are around, at least businesses that we can support and venture into. And sometimes it would be the first for some of us. So it's an idea and a thought that's a way to explore, because some people just need, how can I support this month? What can I do? So I think when we can provide ideas and suggestions around that, that may be something we can do on the website as well.
Yeah. I also, the asiasociety.org has events online that people can just, look into on their own and find a date. There's something that they can go on to that might be a possibility too. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of things I'm going to send over to kind of talk to Tricia about putting on there.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Was somebody going to go over
Anything
Juneteenth?
else for May? Because I kind of glossed over that. Sorry. If not, I guess we can move to June.
Okay. So the Juneteenth working group had a very productive week and a half, couple weeks or so. So we had some discussions among ourselves, and Latasha had the brilliant idea to make the Juneteenth celebration be an open air, Black-owned business market fair kind of thing on the common, similar to like what we do on July 3rd. But this is going to be focused on Black-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, that kind of thing. So we have started working this on multiple fronts. Charisse found us a list of Black-owned businesses in the area, and we're going to be reaching out to them soon. Latasha is working on drafting the email to do the outreach to see to see which businesses are interested in coming. So that's great. Joe took the initiative to contact Lisa Marone and see if she can find anything. So he's working that angle. And then the four of us had a very, very, very productive call with Lieutenant Colin Spence of the CPD yesterday afternoon. Lieutenant Spence is the one who has been arranging, the events on the common for the last 20 years. And so he has a wealth of experience, and he gave us 5,000 things to keep in mind. And it's fantastic guidance. And we have a lot of action items on making sure that we have parking, restrooms, fire department compliance, traffic control, Board of Health stuff taken care of with the businesses that come, depending on, if they're going to be serving food or not. So we have a lot of tendrils going out in different areas to get this thing handled. And so we're just going to be continuing to make progress. I have a lot of the action items to go deal with the regulatory bodies and deal with the, the fire department and, excuse me, and the local churches, and contacting Trinity for ambulance service if we might need that. And then Charisse also is having trying to get us set up with Susan Gates from the Chelmsford Center for the Arts, both for two reasons. Number one, so that we have bathrooms accessible during the event, and number two, that we can possibly even have some sort of outdoor Juneteenth art exhibit, or historic exhibit, some kind of thing on the CCA lawn for people who come to the event to look at. And another thing I have to do is I'm going to be keeping in touch with Sue Rosa from the Board of Health to make sure that we're going to be following all of the COVID guidelines. I was hoping that I was waiting until after the CDC released their new guidance today before trying to schedule anything with her to see if they were going to change their guidance significantly. But it looks like for, crowded outdoor events, it's still going to be full masking, social distancing when we can do it, all that sort of stuff. So that is still going to need to be a concern that we're going to have to deal with as we move forward with planning this event. So we're in early stages, but this is all very exciting. I'm very excited. And I think this is going to be a really cool thing that we're going to be able to pull off.
It sounds great. It sounds like you guys have done an awful lot of work on this. in a relatively short period of time. So that's, when I think about all the things that you have referenced, all the things that you folks have covered, sounds like you've got most of the big stuff, is being considered. So.
One thing I
done.
want to add is that we do want to focus on educating the community about Juneteenth. So I know a couple of us are reading this book. It's called Island of Color, Where Juneteenth Started. I'm just getting started, but it's a great way to educate ourselves and then educate the community in some sort of way. We'll figure out a way to share that information during the Juneteenth celebration.
Yeah, and that reminds me of one thing that I completely forgot to mention is that Latasha, you have the action item to contact Tom Peterson at Chelmsford Telemedia to get us hooked up with audio equipment in case we want to have a featured speaker at the event. So as far as logistics go, the idea at the moment is to have it from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturday, June 19th. We got lucky in that it's actually a Saturday this year, so we get to have it on the real day, which is pretty cool. So we're going to have the whole common. We're going to have that stretch of Westford Street between Route 4 and Academy Street, and Lieutenant Spence also let us know that we will be able to also close off and use Academy Street for vendors and booth stuff. So that'll let us get more businesses in if we have good interest, because that way we'll be able to keep everybody nice and spread out along 2 full streets all along the block. So I think that'll be really handy for making sure that we have enough people there, or enough space for being able to get a lot of businesses in if we have the interest.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Okay, that's all I have for right now. We got a lot of irons in the fire, so to speak.
Yeah. It sounds like like I say, you've got a lot done, and you're thinking about all the important pieces. So that's good. Very good. Let's see. Anyone else?
I have an update on the indigenous people. I don't know, Rafa, are you on the call too?
Yes, I'm not sure if we wanted to start that piece yet or not.
I just wanted to make sure you were on the call so that we can point to you. I just wanted to give an update, and if you want to chime in, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm sorry if I'm jumping in. I can't see anyone because my audio wasn't working, so I'm just working from my cell phone. But just to give you an update on the Indigenous Peoples Day, we had a meeting last Wednesday and we brainstormed on what we would need to do to drive Indigenous Peoples Day. We came up with a bunch of ideas and I wanted to share those with you. The first being an ask to you, Phil, to introduce our intentions at the next select board meeting that you attend. So you said June 7th, possibly. But what we would like to do is provide you with a blurb that would explain what our intentions are around Indigenous Peoples Day, so it doesn't come as a surprise to the select board. And that would be the foundation for us in explaining the article that we want to present to the select board no later than the first or second week of August.
Yeah.
Because if we want to make that change this year, we have to have the select board review the article and chime in with their thoughts and their feedback. So I wasn't going to read the blurb to you here, Phil, unless everybody wants to hear what it is. Rafa and Rachel and Brian went through it, but it's a very short, succinct blurb that just, kind of sets the table.
Right. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just was going to tell you that I've seen a number of emails lately, and it appears that I've gotten, I think what's the latest and greatest. So I've got information. I think I understand what it is you want to review. So if you want to read it for the rest of the committee, that's great. But you did send it to me, so I've had an opportunity to take a look at it.
Okay, great. So Rafa, if you want to read it, it was you started it, so
Yeah.
go ahead and take
So yeah, I mean, I can read it and then maybe briefly talk about why I chose to write this. While it's quite short, it actually took me a while to do it because I really wanted to make it as coherent and applicable to the actual pledge that the select board eventually approved. That way, it's more of a tactic that we're using here. So, all right, so I'll just read it briefly. All right. Our next major initiative is to replace the celebration of Columbus Day in Chelmsford with Indigenous Peoples Day. This transition is part of our ongoing commitment to promote inclusion and condemn bigotry and discrimination in adherence to the Anti-Racism Pledge. The celebration of Columbus discovering the New World ignores the humanity of the Indigenous peoples who were already living in the areas Columbus visited, compounds the intergenerational trauma that Indigenous people are suffering from, and conveniently leaves out the long list of atrocities Columbus committed against the Indigenous people he encountered. Establishing Indigenous Peoples Day is the first step to remedying the harm done by Columbus and future colonizers by instead embracing the perspectives and histories of Indigenous people. So, and this is the latest version that Rachel wrote based off of what I had done and what Brian had done and so forth. So briefly, like I said, the tactic we used was to bring in the anti-racism pledge, so that way we actually had an actual basis in which to start from that is arguably more secure, because this is a pledge now that the select board does have to adhere to and uphold, because they did sign off on it eventually. And so this pledge here, part of that is, promoting inclusion, condemning bigotry and discrimination, and Columbus Day fails that test. So that's kind of the tactic we were doing, and Indigenous Peoples Day counters that and actually adheres to the pledge exactly. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say mostly. I think maybe a couple corrections I want to make just briefly when I'm reading this over. So it's interesting because Columbus, no, we have to play the game, you know what I mean? Because like the select board, I'm not sure how ready they are to hear the full thing about, Columbus. Obviously we wouldn't do that right away, but Columbus certainly, like, I wouldn't say he visited, like he invaded the area. So I would maybe take out the word visited, though I think that's a good start. I just think, Columbus, what he did is he invaded. And he colonized, and eventually it resulted in the system of mass murder and enslavement resulted in the deaths of millions of Indigenous people within a period of like 6 to 9 years. And so, that's a fact. And so visited, I think we could put the word invaded in. Maybe that's a bit of a stretch. Maybe someone has a comment on that. I'm not sure, but.
Yeah, we can take that and look at it. I think our original thought was we didn't want to, take a hammer and hit people over the head with it. We just,
right.
I understand it's important, but I think it gets the message across that, this is something that we really need to look at and understand, the after effects of continuing to call it Columbus Day. So I wanted to make sure that everybody was fine with that language, and especially Phil and Latasha, because I believe you guys are the ones who are going to be meeting with the select board directly. What are your thoughts on it?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, we can massage the words, but how do you feel about the general context of it?
Well, I mean, I think in general it makes sense. I understand the message. That the key, from my perspective, the key is how to present this in a way that it will most likely be positively received by the board. Okay, so for a moment, let's kind of put on the back burner, making sure that we're telling the accurate story and all that. We're all in agreement. That's what we want to do. Most importantly is that we need to understand, as I say, understand your audience. And so we've got individuals who may be in all different places around the need to do this, and we need to present it in a way that encourages them, that pulls them in and gets them, to be open to, what we're suggesting. So
Yeah, and I'd love it if they said, "Tell me more." I would love it if they invited us to say, "Tell me more about that."
right,
give me the
yeah,
details.
and so if we can get them to that space, that's what we have to do. I've not gone over the statement, kind of word for word, thinking about how it would be received by each of the members of the board. But one of the things that I've got to think about, Latasha's got to think about when you're in there having that conversation, is how do I present this in a way that it will most likely be positively received? And that may mean softening or changing some language somewhat. So the only thing I would say is that as we kind of look to trying to craft something that makes sense, we agree that it needs to encourage and invite people who might initially not be inclined to listen to this, to get them to open up to that. So that's the kind of thing that I look for when I get ready to to go into the board, is to understand what is it they're looking for, what can we expect, and how can I best present it so that we get the right response. So that's how I think about this stuff. That's how I think about it.
Brian, your hand is raised.
Yeah, I was just wondering if Phil, if you think that one of the ways we might want to try to present this to the board in the correct, in a encouraging way, I suppose, is kind of the way, but pointing out how many surrounding towns have already done
Absolutely.
this. Lowell did it
Absolutely.
recently, Bedford did it
Absolutely.
recently, Maynard did it recently. Like, towns all over the place are doing this. There are initiatives in the State House to try to get this to go
That's
through finally.
exactly
There's the initiative in the State House to change the state flag. So, we can possibly try to
right.
frame it in a way of, we're getting left behind on this particular issue. And if we don't want to be left behind further and make ourselves seem like even more on the wrong side of history, we may want to jump ahead on this.
Right. Yeah,
But while I have my mic unmuted, I just want to bring up one more thing, though, is that, what Carly said is that we want to maybe have this be presented to the select board by August to try to get things going, to have the select board, get it through so that we can be in time for October. But now we have to worry about the June 30th thing and wonder if we're still going to be around or who's going to be part of the committee and all the other stuff. So that throws a little bit of a monkey wrench into the whole thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm glad you said that. Yeah, that's the facts. That's kind of where we are. So I, as much as anybody else, kind of want to know what's next for us. So I'll do what I can from my perspective and from my vantage point to get information, get us some answers on that kind of stuff. So at least we understand that. But no, you're right. I mean, those are all the kinds of things that we need to be aware of. And I think you're right on. If we can, look around at, sort of like you say, surrounding communities who've done this stuff, that we can point to and go, look, this is what they've done in Lowell. This is what they've done in Maynard. All of these things. And then they can start to look around and go, oh, okay. Others, that has a way of getting people's attention. So that's the kind of the story. Ideally, that's the kind of story I'd like to be able to tell when we go in there. And I think the other thing we need to be aware of is that I would be willing to guess for some, if not all, of the members of the board, this is taking this seriously as a new concept. The concept of it is not new. We all know that, we're not talking about rocket science, something that's brand new here. Taking it seriously and seeing themselves as part of that conversation is another matter. So we need to be thinking about that and making sure that we can present it in such a way that it's going to be received appropriately. So that's the kind of stuff that I think about, like I say, in preparation to having some conversation. Ralph, I think your hand was up.
Yes, yeah, no, I think that's totally great. I think the thing is I purposefully left that out, the piece of introducing like other towns, how they
Mhm.
have you know, made this achievement. I think my thought process was that, you know, maybe they'll argue that well, you know, this is Chelmsford and Chelmsford is
Right.
Maynard, you know. So I was a little bit afraid of
Mhm.
adding that piece in, but I think that maybe, you know, it could contribute, you know, positively to the softening, if you will. But yeah, so I think we probably should add that piece too.
I think it would be helpful if we had one or two slides just detailing the importance of it, and then the other communities that might have adopted it recently, whether it was just their school committee or their actual town, just having those facts. Those are things that we need to share with the select board even before we go to present it to them, so that they have this background information.
Yeah, and it's not just communities, it's employers in the region. Some of the largest employers in the region have long ago switched from Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day. So, yeah, there's a lot of momentum around this. I think it's just a matter of making the select board aware of just how many towns and companies have already adopted Indigenous Peoples Day.
And I don't mean to be trite or, you know, be so much more, be comparative, but if you recall, and one of the things we all remember is Martin Luther King's Day. What was the last state to adopt Martin Luther King's Day? New Hampshire. And everybody remembers that. And not to say that Chelmsford compares to New Hampshire, but my point is that it is important for us to spring forward, go forward with, you know, what other surrounding towns and communities are doing. And that's just my point to that, because they were the last one. And that's the thing that people still talk about, is how they were the last to adopt.
Right.
I think, yes, I think that's good, and I think Latosha's point was good too, because you know, like in that pledge, I think the reason why I put some of that in there because we kind of need like a basis to say like why, you know, celebrating Columbus Day is, you know, is tone deaf essentially, and it is in fact damaging. And so I think that the slides idea is good, because that way the select board will have a basis of understanding why celebrating Columbus Day and why Columbus himself is a very problematic and, you know, violent figure. So yeah.
I think we're going to have, you know, clearly we're going to have, you know, more conversation, you know, around this as we get closer to the meeting and try to figure out, you know, what the best way is for us to present the the information. So we'll continue to kind of fine tune our message. Does that make sense?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Any other?
And I won't go into all the notes, meeting notes. I think you all have the meeting notes. So, you know that there were a number of other ideas that were discussed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think really it comes down to what the outcome is from your presentation with the select board and what happens later in the month of June. So
Right.
more to come.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. I think one other, I guess, if you can call Carly, you and I a working group, I wanted to share with them our conversation on our work around the film series in Watch Party that you know, Carly had mentioned before. So we got together to kind of talk through what types of things we might be able to do or sponsor as a committee around the, you know, identifying a number of films that you know, would have topic areas that were in line with our mission, and then figure out how to set up first how to set up ways to view those films, and then how to look at you know, establishing some discussion groups after those films had been viewed. And I think we we identified a number of different ways to go about it. You could have, a situation where you could have individuals who have streaming services, and they could identify the different films through the streaming service, look at the film, and then we could work with the library, for example, to set up a speaker, maybe a speaker to come in to facilitate conversations around those films, or and possibly have one of us to facilitate conversations around some of the films that we might choose. And one of the things that we kind of talked through is that there'd be a number of things that we need to determine how we want to get the film. First off, identifying the films, then figuring out how we want to have the films viewed, how we want to make sure that folks have access to those films, and then how we want to handle the actual conversations afterwards. So we got a number of good ideas, but the other thing that we agree with, and certainly Carly, jump in if I misrepresent anything, but I think it was kind of clear to us that the likelihood of us getting something nailed down sooner rather than later was probably not good. We've got a number of big things on the table right now, so it would probably be maybe fall of the year before we would be able to get into this seriously. So we thought that this might be one of the things that we'd want to pursue, but maybe a little later down the road as opposed to immediately. Does that kind of capture it, Carly?
That does. Well, the one idea that I really like that, and I know we have a lot on our plate, but the one idea that we talked about at the end of the meeting, Till, was sort of like a play on a book club. And I belong to a book club. I don't know if anybody else here belongs to book clubs, but we could easily just, spin up a Facebook page for Drake that, is the Drake Film Club. And we can say movie of the month. And anybody who wants to join, can join, and we can have a discussion group through Facebook or whatever. Kind of fun. It's something different. It's something fun. We can promote it through the different Facebook groups that are out there. But it's just ideas like that. But I agree with Phil that we have a lot that we're working on in the immediate term, and just something for everybody to kind of think about. But I just think it makes us more accessible and makes it more fun for people to engage with us on these ideas.
Anyone else have any thoughts on our potential film series?
I just want to say that last bit about making it, if we didn't want to do like real time, like bringing people together in a more asynchronous way might be a slightly easier but still really beneficial way to connect with the community on these and get people watching and reading material. So I really like that take on it. I think that can be in conjunction or in addition to. A lot of options there. I like it.
Yep. Okay, great, thanks. Anything else? Did we cover all the working groups? Miss anybody?
I think so.
All right. The next thing, I just wanted to check in kind of as a reminder about our diversity training update. I don't know if any of you have had an opportunity to complete the diversity training. That I'm not a racist, am I? Brian, does that mean your hand is up? Brian got it done. Anyone else? Brian, I think you're in at this point. The folks on the line. I just again wanted to remind folks that we are committed to having this done. I believe it was May 13th, if I'm not mistaken, either 13th or the 15th. Either way, it's really, really important that we get in here and get that training for us for a whole bunch of reasons. Not the least of which is that we want to be able to roll this out to the select board. I really want us to be able to say, that, hey, we've been working with you. It's clear that you folks can benefit, as lots of people can benefit from some training, in the understanding diversity, understanding, some of the challenges, in this society, to being able to get to a place where racial equity is a real thing and inclusiveness is real. And, we are willing to pay for you to go to the training yourself. So I guess this is my impassioned plea to folks to make every effort to get in there and get the training. All of the feedback has been positive. Brian, I believe you had some positive comments about the training. Did you feel like it worked pretty well?
I started it on a Sunday afternoon and finished it by that night. It was like I couldn't put it down. It was very, very compelling, excellently put together. Even the questions were thought provoking and interactive. So I really thought it was very worthwhile.
Yeah, it's pretty well done. It is pretty well done. And so again, let's see what we can do to try to get that nailed down. And I would like nothing better than to kind of be able to challenge the board and say, hey, our committee found time, all of us found time to get that done. And this is a freebie for you guys.
Susan has her hand raised.
What?
Susan has her hand raised.
Oh, okay.
All right, so just a reminder, the date that we said that everyone would complete it by is May 15th.
15th,
But
thank you.
Are we going to talk about it ourselves? I mean, kind of have
Well, yeah, I mean,
I would love to. I'm almost finished with it, and I would love to be able to sit down and talk to all of you about how it affected us as we watched it.
No, ideal. I think early on we were hoping that we could time this so that we could take the program, maybe get halfway through it, everyone talk together about halfway point, and then go through and complete it and be able to come back together. That didn't happen, but most definitely, the plan is for us to be able to come together and have a conversation about the training. And maybe it's something that we do. Maybe we have to identify a separate meeting. Maybe we agree to have a separate meeting and all come together and have the conversation. But no, I absolutely agree to that. What?
We could do it outside we're all vaccinated, I believe.
The CDC said we can do that.
Well, I'm sure we can figure out some way to get that done. But most definitely we'll plan to do that.
Yeah, I think one of the really important pieces with this is that it's not a recorded meeting. I think it's a topic that you want people to come very vulnerable and talk about it, and we should be really clear that This is not a meeting, this is a training opportunity where we should be coming with a more vulnerable approach.
Absolutely. Yep. So I think we can definitely.
Hopefully we can get that approved, because it's not going to be something where we're making decisions at that. It's really just a learning opportunity for us to talk about it. So it's not like we're voting on events or anything else. So hopefully we'll be allowed to just do that as a learning opportunity.
I would think there's a way for us to structure it so that we could have that conversation, and not run afoul of any of the guidelines or rules as it relates to open meeting law. You know what I mean?
So just to give you
that as an action item to follow up with Tricia on.
Absolutely.
I know that when the school committee read How to Be an Anti-Racist, they were allowed to have a meeting about it that no one else was part of, because it was an educational meeting for them to read the book and discuss it. So just putting that out there.
Good precedent.
All right. Okay. All right. Great. Yeah. I'll be sure to follow up with Tricia around that and see what the guidelines are and how we can work with that. Any other comments? Any other items?
No.
Any other items that anyone wanted to cover at this point?
So I guess my question would be in terms of the working group that I'm a part of for the Indigenous Peoples Day. So I just maybe want to go over some of our next steps as a group and to try to figure out what to do from here. So I think, we definitely need to edit the scripts. That's one piece, and soften the language. And I think we mentioned slides too, like maybe circling back with Matui Munro and seeing maybe getting some slides together or something, and then maybe like showing her to see if she approves of what we're doing, so we have some sort of consent from the people of that this directly impacts. So yeah, I'm not just throwing some ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'll do, Rafa? I'll send out a based on what we think we need to do next. I'll put that in the meeting agenda for our next meeting, and if anything else comes up, it's an informal breakout group, so we can just discuss anything else that we need to cover. Does that sound good?
Yes. Okay.
Anything else? So in terms of our meeting schedule, our next meeting would be May the 11th. And the following meeting would be May the 25th at this point. Are there any specific agenda items that we want to make sure that we include for the May 11th meeting?
Hey, Phil?
Yep.
Could I make a comment? A private citizen, not a member of the group. But just about the continuing the committee. I think you guys are doing a great job. I think you're all passionate. What can we do as private citizens? Should we contact the select board?
Actually, what I can do, if you would send me a quick email, you still have my email?
Yes, I think.
All right, please send me an email, and you and I can have a conversation offline. We can't have that conversation here in this meeting, but I can have a conversation with you. So if you would do that, yeah, no problem at all. We can follow up. Thank you. Yep.
I don't have an agenda item for our next meeting, but I was just going to remind Susan if she could ask Linda Hirsch if she could attend one of our meetings, whether it's May 11th or the 25th.
I will do that, but I'm wondering if the 25th might, oh, never mind. We don't want to do it as part of our meeting. Scratch that. I will ask her.
Yeah, and maybe I wouldn't be terribly upset with the June the 8th either, to tell you the truth. I mean, because we do have some things that we need to cover, and I just want to make sure that we can have some of the full conversations we need to have. So. All right. Okay. Well, if anyone thinks of anything that they believe is going to be critical for our next meeting, please send it out to me. It'll probably be the end of the week before I get the agenda ready for our next meeting, or maybe beginning of the following week. So I have a little time, but I just want to make sure that I get things on the agenda if they need to be there.
Oh, I'm curious how. Oh, never mind. We have 2 weeks. So I will be away before Tricia gets back from her vacation. So if you could just ask her to put the agenda together again, so it will be posted in time. By the time I get back, it might be too late.
Okay. All right. Okay, great. Yep, most definitely we can do that. Anything else, Latasha? Nothing? Okay. All right.
Nothing that I can think of at this time, other than preparing for the select board presentation. You know, we might want to review our goals to see if there are any edits that are needed.
Right, okay, yeah, I will definitely add that to, that will be on the agenda. So we'll be all set for that. Okay, great. Well, if we have, Brian, did you have something? Yeah, you popped up all of a sudden. I thought you had something. Okay. If there are no other items, then I would like to propose that the April 27th meeting of the Diversity, Racial Equity, and Inclusion Committee be adjourned. Can I get a second to that motion? I mean, can I get something to make that motion?
I make a motion that the meeting be adjourned.
A second?
I second it, LaTasha Dixon.
Okay, thank you. All right, thanks, folks.